Hi, welcome to Lies and Secrets channel. We hope you will have fun with us and Anthony watching. I'm not sure where to begin. It feels almost impossible to put into words the chaos that unfolded that day. Yet I find myself compelled to share it. Maybe it's a way to make sense of what happened. Or perhaps it's just an attempt to relieve the weight of guilt that's been crashing my ch***t. I can still see the late afternoon sun streaming through the living room window, casting a wall, golden rays across the floor, creating a sense of normalcy that felt so out of place against the storm of emotions brewing within me. It started innocently enough, just me and William, our golden retriever, and Anthonying a lazy afternoon. The house was quiet, kind of quiet that wraps around you like a familiar blanket wrapping you in safety and comfort. I'd always thought of William as more than just a pet. He was my companion, my confidant. There was something about his unwavering loyalty that made me feel special, loved. Even he would always greet me with boundless energy and excitement. And in that moment I let myself get carried away as I sat on the floor surrounded by toys scattered like memories. I started to play with him the way he bounded towards me. Tail wagging, eyes gleaming with happiness reminded me of simpler times. My laughter filled the room, a sound that felt pure and untainted. But it was as if I had opened Pandora's box, unleashing feelings I had pushed deep down. In the midst of our play, I felt a rush of affection that spiraled out of control. My heart raced as I found myself lost in the moment, forgetting the world outside our little bubble. The lines began to blur, and what should have been innocent became something more intense. I guess I didn't realize how far I had strayed until it was too late. It was as if I was dancing on the edge of a cliff, blissfully unaware of the fool that awaited me. And then without warning it happened. The door swung open and there stood my husband frozen in disbelief. His eyes widened, the color draining from his face as he took in the scene. Time seemed to halt the moment, stretching into an eternity. My heart plummeted, caught in a vice of panic and shame. I remember the way his expression shifted from confusion to anger, the betrayal in his gaze cutting deeper than a knife. I wanted to scream to Emma to take it all back, but the words caught in my throat, paralyzed by the weight of my actions. "Is this what you call love?" He finally managed to choke out his voice, trembling with hurt. Each word felt like a dagger piercing through the last remnants of our fragile relationship. I tried to speak, to tell him how it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. But the truth was that I had crossed a line I could never uncross. All I could do was watch as the man I had promised my heart to crumbled before my eyes. I could see the pain etched across his face, a mixture of betrayal and disbelief swirling in those once warm eyes. "How could you do this to me?" He whispered the words, barely escaping his lips. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with unspoken accusations and shattered trust. I wanted to fall to my knees to beg for forgiveness, but I knew that no amount of pleading could erase what had just happened. What lay ahead was a chasm of silence, filled with the echoes of broken promises and unfulfilled dreams. The love we had built together now felt like a distant memory tainted by my reckless actions. I could see the walls closing in, separating us like three strangers trapped in a nightmare. My heart ached with guilt, a heavy burden that I had to bear alone while he stood burdened, grappling with the reality of it. The days that followed were a blur of despair. Conversations turned into arguments, laughter faded into silence. I could feel the distance growing, a chasm that felt insurmountable. Every time I looked at him, I saw the ghost of the man he once was, the love that had bonded us, now hanging by a thread. I tried to salvage what was left, but how do you repair something when the very foundation has crumbled to dust? I replayed that moment over and over in my mind, searching for answers that would never come. How did I let myself lose control? Why didn't I stop? I was drowning in a sea of self-loathing and regret each breath, a reminder of the choices I had made. I felt like a stranger in my own life, trapped in an endless cycle of emotional turmoil, desperately trying to find a way back to something I had irrevocably destroyed. And yet amid the heart act, there was a flicker of hope. I could still feel the warmth of love lingering between us. I never imagined I would find myself in this situation. It all started so innocently, like a gentle breeze rustling the leaves on a warm summer day. I was in love. His name was Charlie, and from the moment we met at that coffee shop, there was an undeniable spark between us. We spent countless hours sharing our dreams, our fears, and our favorite songs. It was the kind of connection that felt effortless, like three puzzle pieces sliding perfectly together. But as the saying goes, every rose has its thorn. As the months passed, the initial thrill began to fade. The late-night conversations turned into routine text messages, and the spontaneous adventures morphed into predictable evenings spent on the couch binge-watching shows. I found myself longing for the excitement we once shared, for the passion that had ignited my heart in the beginning. One evening, while scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon a photo that made my heart sink. It was a picture of Charlie laughing and embracing a girl I didn't recognize. The caption read, "So grateful for this amazing friend." My stomach twisted into knots and a wave of insecurity washed over me. Who was she? Why hadn't he mentioned her before? I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself I was overreacting, but deep down a small voice whispered that something wasn't right. As days turned into weeks, I became more aware of Charlie's behavior. He spent longer hours at work. His phone seemed to be glued to his hand, and I caught him in little lives, saying he was running late because of traffic, when I knew the roads were clear. I tried to confront him, but each time I opened my mouth, fear gripped me, holding me back. What if I was wrong? What if I was just being paranoid? I didn't want to ruin what we had, but the weight of uncertainty was crushing me. One fateful night, everything came to a head. I was lying in bed staring up at the ceiling, replaying every moment I had shared with Charlie. A sense of desperation washed over me. I needed to know the truth. I waited until he fell asleep, then quietly crept into the living room where his laptop sat open. My palms were sweaty and my heart raced. As I hesitated for a moment, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever I might find. As I scrolled through his messages, it became painfully clear that I had been living a lie. There were conversations with that girl from the photo messages filled with inside jokes, plans to meet up, and I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. They were not just friends. It was evident they shared something deeper, something I had been blind to. Anger bubbled within me, mixed with a profound sense of betrayal. I remembered all the times I had trusted him, how I had opened my heart to him only to have it stormed on. I couldn't sleep that night. The tears streamed down my face as I replayed every memory, every love, every guess we had shared. Was any of it real? I felt so foolish for ignoring the signs, for convincing myself that everything was fine when all along it was crumbling beneath my feet. I realized then that I had to confront him. I had to know why he had chosen to betray me, to hide this from me. The next day when he walked through the door, I could barely look him in the eye. I could feel the tension building between us, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air like a storm about to break. I took a deep breath and finally asked him to sit down. "I know about her," and said, my voice trembling but steady. The look on his face was a mixture of shock and guilt, and in that moment I knew I had struck a nerve. "What are you talking about?" He stammered the denial, slipping from his lips like a desperate plea. But I was done with the lies. I laid everything bare, the messages, the photos, the proof that I wasn't imagining things. His silence was deafening, and in that instant I realized that I had lost the person I thought I knew. I didn't mean for it to happen. He finally said, his eyes cast down, unable to meet mine. "It was a mistake." The word felt like poison. A mistake. How could he dismiss it so casually? Every moment we had shared, every promise he had made felt like it was being swept away with that one word. "How could you do this to me?" I choked out, anger and heartbreak, mingling in a whirlwind of emotion. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make him feel the pain that was crashing my ***T. Instead I felt numb. I had built my whole world around him, and now it was all crumbling into dust. "I never meant to hurt you," he pleaded. But I could see the distance in his eyes, the realization that he had already chosen her. It was a choice I couldn't understand. I had given him my awe, and he had thrown it away for someone else. In that moment I realized I had to let go. It wouldn't be easy. It would hurt like hell, but I couldn't allow myself to be caught in his web of deceit any longer. I stood up, wiped the tears from my face and faced him with a resolve I didn't know I had. "Can't do this," said my voice firm. "I deserve better than this." As I walked out of that room, I felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. The weight of betrayal began to lift, but it left a hollow ache in its place. I was stepping into the unknown, and while I was terrified of what lay ahead, I knew it was a journey I had to take. I had to find myself again to rediscover the Anthony that had been stolen from me. It would take time, but I was ready to start anew, to learn to love myself first before I could ever love someone else again. It was a typical Friday evening when everything changed. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows in my living room. The usual chatter of France buzzing with laughter filled the air, but somehow I felt detached. I could tell something was off, like a low hum of anxiety. Beneath the surface of our festivities, my best friend Mia had been overly cheerful, lately too cheerful, her laughter a little too loud, her smiles just a touch too bright. I brushed it off at first, chalking it up to her newfound enthusiasm for life. Little did I know the truth was a storm brewing on the horizon. As the night progressed, I found myself retreating to the kitchen, seeking solace in the familiar clatter of dishes and the scent of pizza. That's when I saw him, Leo, my boyfriend of 3 years, leaning against the counter, his laughter mingling with his. It was the way he looked at her that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I had seen that look before, a spark of something I thought was reserved for me. My heart sank as disbelief washed over me. I shook my head, telling myself that I was being paranoid. But deep down, an unsettling voice whispered that something was terribly wrong. I watched them from the shadows, my heart racing, my mind spiraling. They were locked in a conversation, their heads leaning closer together, sharing jokes and secrets like 3 conspirators planning a heist. I felt invisible, a ghost haunting the edges of their intimate bubble. "Schlaf from me." I felt like a dagger to my **T, twisting with every shared glance. I poured myself a glass of water, hoping to drown my rising tide of emotions, but it only fueled my unease. I could feel the betrayal creeping in each tick of the clock, echoing louder than the last. It was in that moment of quiet that my phone, but on the counter breaking the spell, a notification from Instagram flickered to life, and instinctively I glanced down. It was a message from a mutual friend, someone who had always been a little too observant, a little too involved in our lives. "Did you see the pictures from last weekend? Leo and me looked cozy." My stomach dropped. Cozy, the word twisted like a knife. I felt the walls closing in, the laughter of my friends fading into a distant murmur. As I tried to process the gravity of what I was reading, all the signs began to flood my mind. The late-night texts, the secretive phone call, the way he would sometimes leave the room when I walked in. I had always dismissed them, thinking I was being overdramatic. But now the truth felt like a brick wall I was hurtling toward at breakneck speed. I had to confront him. I had to know. The adrenaline coursing through me felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I felt like a tightrope walker balancing on the edge of my sanity. With my heart pounding in my **T, I returned to the living room. The atmosphere shifted as I entered. I could feel the energy change. Leo glanced up, his smile faltering as he caught sight of my expression. I could see the glimmer of panic in his eyes, and for a brief second, I reveled that shield in it. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady, despite the Charles swirling inside me. Mia's laughter faded and she looked between us, her eyes wide. There was no turning back now. I led him out onto the balcony, away from prying ears. The cool night air, a stark contrast to the heat building in my **T. The city lights twinkle below us, oblivious to my crumbling emo. "What's going on, Leo?" I demanded, my tone is sharper than I intended. "What's really happening between you and Mia?" He opened his mouth, hesitation written. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the mess of clothes scattered across the floor. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that danced across the room, reminding me of the turmoil with them. It felt surreal, like I was watching a scene unfold from a distance, unable to grasp the reality of what had just happened. The betrayal hung thick in the air, a cloud of confusion and hurt that seemed to suffocate me. When I first found out, my heart dropped. It was as if someone had yanked the ground from beneath my feet. All those moments we shed, the laughter, the late-night talks, the dreams we painted together suddenly felt tainted like whispers of a lie that had been hiding in plain sight. I replayed her words over and over, searching for the signs. I had missed the little hints that could have pointed me toward the truth. But all I found was the spiraling sadness that made my take. The hardest part wasn't just the act itself. It was the realization that the person I thought I knew so well had chosen to hide this from me. I remembered how she would laugh at my corny jokes, how her eyes sparkled when she talked about our future. And now those memories felt like daggers, each one piercing deeper than the last. As I sank deeper into my thoughts, I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak, the kind of pain that twists your gut and keeps you awake at night. I wanted to scream, to confront her, to demand answers that I knew I might never really get. But more than that, I wanted to understand why. Why she felt the need to seek comfort in someone else when we had built something so beautiful together. In that moment, I realized that healing wouldn't happen overnight. I had to confront the emotions swirling inside me, untangle the web of love and betrayal, and ultimately decide what was next. Did I want to fight for what we had? In the end, trust once broken can never truly be rebuilt, but in the ashes of betrayal, we often find the strength to rise anew. Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel by activating the bell, so you don't miss any of our daily videos. See you tomorrow.